Hello, me again. Are you stuck or are you here to learn something? Let me know in the comments. I'm actually quite curious on how do you watch these videos and why do you watch these videos? Is it for curiosity or is it because you're stuck? Either case, my name's Rob. If this is your first time watching our video series, what I do is I try to help navigate your ways through free code camps, exercises, or labs or workshops because sometimes they might be confusing, but I come at it from an instructor point of view because I am a coding instructor. So in this video here, we're going to be taking a look at design a greeting card, a lab, and we're going to go through it step by step. So if you are interested in a certain step, or maybe a step's not working for you, feel free to jump to that chapter. So with that being said, go ahead and like this video because you know you're going to get something out of it. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our problem. All right, so it's really nice to see some styling going on here. I'm hoping that it might look like this. I've done a few where they give us a little preview and it looks nothing like what they say here. Again, I'm going through it fresh, brand new. I haven't seen any of these steps before. But just looking off the bat, we have a interesting hover effect that we see here. Same thing with the buttons, and this is all dealing with pseudo classes. And then we even have an active pseudo class with the click and everything, as you can see, that it is moving on. Let's see if there's any other things that I kind of notice. A little growing and shrinking, obviously, over the hover. But yeah, let's go ahead and see what we have to do for user story number one. Okay, so step number one here, it says in this workshop, you're going to be practicing utilizing different pseudo classes and pseudo elements, designing that greeting card that we saw earlier. It did provide us some boilerplate. However, it did not provide us with the boilerplate to link our style sheet in our head section. So that's the very first thing that we need to do. And if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm a big proponent of using W3 schools, Indian docs, and how do we Google and find some of these things? And how do we link a page? W3 schools for CSS would be something that I would go ahead and type in and view because it brings us to this page here. This is something that you're going to probably want to just put in your notes because if you're going through freeCodeCamp, this is used a lot. And so I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. I'm going to copy it and then I'm going to paste it onto my step number one. I am going to change a few things on here, and I'm always encouraging you to try some things out. My standard go-to here is with the body. Just go ahead and do a background color, and we want to set that to pink. And that's how we're going to know that, hey, this is actually synced up to our page here because of this link. And it's not working, right? Our page is not pink. How do we get it to be pink? The way that freeCodeCamp works is it provides us with a styles.css. And so that's what we have to do for it. So I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger and it needs to be styles. Okay. And so there we go. Now I have my pink background. And if I go to this and check the code, I should be good to go. And we're moving on to our next step. All right, let's go ahead and move on. And PS, by the way, the background pink is not going to stick around if we hit the submit and go to the next user story, okay, or the next step. So step number two has us do a couple of things on here. It says, let's go ahead and create a div element with the ID of greeting card and also give it a class. Elements that can have IDs and classes all on one. I think we've seen that before. And then it says on the inside of this div element, we're going to add an H1 with happy birthday and then add a paragraph tag with a class and a statement on there as well. Cool. Let's go ahead and break this thing down step by step. And the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div element and I'm going to go ahead and close it off. That's what I always try to do, practice this, especially early on. And I tell my students, hey, let's go ahead and create the element, but close it off right away. This comes naturally with any kind of modern code editors. But if you're using like a notepad type of environment, which is camps online, then it doesn't give it to you naturally. So the div needs to have an ID of greeting card, and then it also needs a class. Okay, now the order of this doesn't matter as long as it has it inside the very first tag element. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put in card for this. And so that would satisfy this first part right here. That's all it was wanting. Next, let's go ahead and do the inside. So inside this div element, let's go ahead and add an H1. Next, I'm going to close it off And then I'm going to come up here. I'm going to grab the happy birthday, and then I'm going to paste it inside of that H1. And we'll see it appear on the right-hand side of the screen that we see here. So that's our very first thing that we get to see. Next is a paragraph element. So again, I'm just going to repeat that pattern of let's get the tags in there first, and then worry about any kind of classes or IDs. And then we'll go into what needs to go inside. So here I only see a class. I'm going to set that equal to message. And then inside the paragraph tag, this is where I'm going to go ahead and copy what it wants us to put in there, which is wishing you all the happiness and joy on your special day. And I'm going to paste that in between the tags. So there we go. I believe that we satisfied the conditions. Let's go ahead and check our code. There we go. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next step. Step number 3, now it's time to style the greeting card, and let's go ahead and add that selector body. Okay, so there's the body. Now, whenever we're doing things like these tags that we see here, body or H1, they don't get a dot, they don't get a hashtag, okay? So we need to target the body, and it says change the font family to Arial. So it does give us some tips on the properties that it wants us to do. So we'll do font family. Notice nothing's capitalized. We're going to do a colon afterwards. And we want the Arial first, and then we want the sans serif second. Okay, perfect. Next, it says let's go ahead and add paddings on all the sides. And one of the keyboard shortcuts or the shortcut property, I would say, is we can do this with just that property of padding, especially if it's all 4 sides. And we only need to put in one value. And so we're going to do padding 40 pixels and put the semicolon on there. Lastly, it says that we need to do the text align, and we need to make that center. There we go. And that shifted everything that is contained in the body, shifted it to the center as far as the text goes. Okay. I believe this satisfies all the styling for step number 3. Let's go ahead and check our code. There we go. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next. Step number 4, it says, now it's time to add some color. So we want to give the body a background color of brown and also give the card a background color of white. So 2 things that we need to do in here. So we'll do the very first one, which is the background color. We want to set that to brown. So there we go. Next, I'm going to go ahead and copy this because it says we need to target the card. And it does provide us with the cheat on there, which is the period card, which identifies the class. And we're going to open up the curly brackets here of brown. We want this to be white. All right, there we go. I think that this works out. Let's go ahead and check our code, and congratulations. Step number 5 here, it says give the card a max width of 400 pixels, a padding of 40 on all sides, a margin of 0 on the top and bottom, and auto for the left and right. So cool. We got a couple cool things for the teaching points on this one. The very first one is the max width. Again, this is just another property that is going to say, hey, you can grow as much as you want, but I'm going to put a limit to how big you can go. You can't go any larger than 400 pixels. So we can do max width, and we want to set that to 400 pixels. Now this next property that it wants us to do, again, we've seen this before with up above. How can we apply the same value to all 4 sides? We can do the padding 40. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it, and I'm going to paste it down here. Great. So remember, padding like shoves everything up all around, in this case here, and gives us a nice little padding room on this box. Okay. Next, it says the margin. This is where what it's trying to do is center the card on the web page. And so it's saying, hey, take away the top and bottom margins. We don't need them, but auto apply on the left and right, which is essentially going to help us center this block element here on our web page, just left and right only. Okay. So we are going to use the margin property, and we're not going to go like margin top, margin bottom. We can accomplish this all utilizing the single property of margin. And whenever we have the same value on top and bottom, we can go ahead and apply that value to the very first, it's almost like a parameter almost. The very first bucket that we have on here can be applied to the top and bottom. Right now, its margin is set to 0, which means it's being applied to all around. We don't want that. we want it just to be the top and the bottom. So we have to just apply another value here. And this can be applied for the left and right. So we can do 0, and then we can do the auto, and that should help us get this item centered. Now, something that I always tell my students on this is maybe I'll draw this out here, because when we're dealing with these values and we have 4 values in here separated by spaces, it goes in a clock format, and we always start on the clock at 12, right? And so that value that we put right here is going to be for the top. And I totally could have done, okay, so what do I want to do for the right side? It told me to do auto, okay? Next, it says, what do we do on the bottom? This is the next value on here. We want the bottom to be 0. And then what do we want on the left-hand side of the clock? And we want auto for it. So this would give us the same exact thing as a simplified version. And so it makes me relate to math, how we can simplify fractions, right? Even though 4/8, we can say it's 4/8, but we can simplify that to a half, right? So just like we could have 4 values on here for the margins, but we can simplify it by utilizing 2. The first part is for the top and bottom, and then the auto is going to be for the left and right. Okay, let's go ahead and check our code. And it did say use the shorthand property for this, and that's what we ended up doing. It says, congratulations, we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so step number 6, it's telling us that it needs a little more styling. Let's go ahead and add a border radius of 10 pixels. Let's do that first. So we'll do border radius. We're gonna set that to 10 pixels. All right, great. We got some nice rounded corners here on all 4 sides. And then it says that we need to have a box shadow with the values of 0, 4 pixels, 8 pixels, and then gray. Let's go ahead and do this one next. So there's the box shadow. Now let's go ahead and add these values. So I went ahead and added a couple values on here just to reinforce our learning from a couple previous ones, which was the box shadow here. We have the X and Y position, right, of the shadow. So we can see here that the 0 is going to be the X, the Y up and down, right? And we have a nice little shadow down here. The next number that we apply is the spread of it. So there's the 8 pixels, and it is a little fuzzy. So let's go ahead and test our code here. We do need to make sure that we have a semicolon on here. And there we go. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next step. So step number 7 in freeCodeCamp's design a greeting card, it tells us that we need to add a new div. It needs to go below our div, or below the element of our paragraph that has the class of message. So let's go ahead and do that right here. So we're going to do a div, and then again, I'm closing it off. It said that we need to add a class attribute of card links. So let's go ahead and do that. Class card links. Okay, perfect. I believe that is what it was wanting. There we go. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next step. Step number 8 in freeCodeCamp's design a greeting card. It says that we need to have 2 anchor tags in here. So let's go ahead and add those 2 anchor tags. And that's just the A tag. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. All right, now that we have the 2 anchor tags, let's go ahead and talk about what text does it need to have in there. So the very first one here is send a card. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one. You can see that it popped up right there. Next one has the text of share the social media. So I'm going to grab it, and let me go ahead and paste that here. Perfect. Next, I want to go ahead and add a class here called send link, and the other one is share link. So on here, we're going to add a class send link, and then the other one is the share link. All right, I will go ahead and say that typically you're not going to do a class just on a single item. This would probably be more like an ID that we would use, but we're just having an anchor tag with a class. And let's do the ID, or I guess it doesn't need an ID, it just needs an href. All right, so let's go ahead and do the href now. And we want to set that equal to hashtag send. And then the same thing down here, it also needs and it's going to be a hashtag of share. Now, again, what freeCodeCamp here is doing is just making sure it doesn't go to another URL. And eventually later on, they would probably make this work. So this is just to pass the test. It has no meaning on what it would actually do on this page, but that's what we're using this for. All right, so I believe that should satisfy all of these steps that we need to pass. Let's go ahead and take a look. There we go. Congratulations, we're moving on to the next. Step number 9 says that we want to add 2 section elements, one right after the other. The first should have an ID of send, the other one should have the ID of share. So let's go ahead and do this one. What it's asking for is a section. Since they're both getting IDs, I'm going to go ahead and just do an empty quote for now, and then I'm going to close this off. Now that I have that, I will copy this, and then I will paste it and give each their own special ID. So the first one, it says that it needs to be send. The next one needs to be share. All right, let's go ahead and check our code. There we go. All right, step number 10, it says we need to add an H2 on here to the send section, and the H2 needs to say sending your card. And then we also need to add a paragraph element, card successfully sent to your recipient. Okay, cool. So just a couple things that we need to add here. No IDs, no classes, no nothing. So we'll do an H2. And then we're going to close off that H2. Now, especially since we're utilizing freeCodeCamp's testing algorithm here, we're going to go ahead and copy the text instead of typing it out. And then we're going to put the following in here for the paragraph tag. I'm just going to do opening and closing tags. And then I'm going to grab the entire sentence that it wants us to add and put it right there in between the paragraph tags. Okay. And I believe that's all it's wanting. Again, no IDs, no nothing that need to go into the H2 or the paragraph tag. Let's check our code. And there we go. We got the congratulations. Okay, so we just finished our step number 10. I kind of breaking up these videos that are multiple steps into maybe groups of 10 or what have you, just so that these videos aren't extra long. Okay, because a lot goes into this, but we want to make sure that you get the material that you came here for, right? So please make sure that you like this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. And if you have any kind of questions whatsoever, type it in the comments down below. I do read every single one of them, and we try to answer them. If we can't answer them through YouTube, we try to go other means. But anyways, we will see you in the next video.